Welcome to Married to History, where we try to be informative, entertaining, and family-friendly.
Aloha, I'm Christopher. I have a fancy piece of paper on my wall that says that I know more about history than most people do.
I'm Shirley. I'm a homeschool mom that relies on good curriculum, Christopher, and the sound of music to teach our kids history.
See, now that's a great thing. The sound of music. Oh, you meant the musical, not like the literal sound of music.
So funny. Okay, before we get
You
into our
say
episode...
funny, but I maintain, I have conviction of that. Music is an excellent teaching tool.
It is. I absolutely agree.
I am 100% in favor of music programs continuing in public school systems, but we're not a political show, so we're not going to talk about things like that.
And that's a very bold stand to take. Very,
Are you being sarcastic right
Yes, yes, because I don't think many people disagree with that. Okay.
Math nerds do.
Actually, math and music go like hand in hand.
You know that, and I know that, but I'm not convinced math nerds know that.
Okay, let's just attack a whole group of people.
I seem to recall when I was, so I've talked about this when I was in my credential program, where they mixed all the teachers together. I seem to recall it was the math nerds that were the arrogant sods of the bunch that said that, oh, this, that, or the other thing is a nonsense thing that shouldn't be done in schools anymore.
Okay.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. And then it also would have been, even if I am remembering correctly, it would have just been that small group of us.
Yeah, you can't generalize like that.
For all I know, all those math nerds didn't get their credentials, and are safely not teaching our children.
Okay.
I'm sorry, did I go off on too much of that?
I'm not sure what to do with that tangent. All right, before we get started today, I have a listener email that I wanted to read.
Okay.
It's actually something that we need to address because you actually said something really offensive a couple episodes back.
I did.
Yes,
okay.
And you're being called out. So the subject line was, "Hey now," and he says, "I laughed out loud when Christopher said he knows more about history than I do. I'm sure that he does. My interest in history is as an amateur. I tend to focus on things I find interesting. So while I may know about an incident or two that Christopher doesn't, his knowledge base is going to be far broader and deeper than mine. That is why I love listening. I learn something every podcast." So that's from Andy.
I was gonna say, how is that offensive?
No, I was trying to make you nervous.
Oh, okay.
No, you like specifically said, "I know more about history than Andy does."
If I remember,
and he heard you.
Oh, okay. I thought. I remember that, like, the second or first episode we did, I used the opener, "I know more about history than anybody," or something like that. But yes, I remember now. I think I said something specific about Andy just a couple of episodes back. Okay, yes.
Yes. So he heard you, so maybe you shouldn't be so mean.
I'm trying not to call people idiots anymore. We've talked about this. I'm going to try to go with foolish. That's a nicer way to say it, right?
Uh-huh.
So people were saying that Dave didn't deserve something I said about him, so we're going to go with foolish now.
Okay. Anyways, we love our listeners, and we love getting listener emails, and if you message us, we just might read it on the pod.
And in case I haven't said it before, I enjoy talking about history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you know more than me, or if you know less than me. If you do know more about me, especially on a specific subject, I guarantee you I want to talk to you.
Absolutely, yes. And I think
And remember, I'm a teacher. I'm used to talking to people that don't know as much as that I do. I get paid for it.
Right, but also I don't think it's too much to repeat again that, like, the point of this podcast isn't to show off your knowledge necessarily. I mean, that's part of it.
To tease and torment me.
Well, that.
Because you like teasing and tormenting history nerds.
And I like to think that by doing this, we're encouraging people to be interested in learning.
I hope
and
so.
we are also interested in learning. Like, we're leading by example. Like, if you're wrong, correct us, please, and we'll talk about it on the pod, and we'll learn more. So
I hope so.
Yes. All right. Let's move on.
All right. Well, before we get into our episode today, we have a couple of things from a past episode that we want to address. So, in particular, it's important to remember, that Shirley doesn't tell me beforehand about whatever she's going to ask me about.
And
that means that sometimes not only do I miss things, but sometimes I find out that, some of the things I said were not based on historical research I did, but were so long ago that when I actually do some research on them, I find out that, dang, that kernel of knowledge I had, that came from a movie that I saw like 20, 30 years ago. I was a kid at the time. I was watching the movie because it had gunfire in it.
Yeah, you should be very embarrassed. So,
I am very embarrassed on this particular one.
so today's corrections are not based on any feedback from anyone except your own shame.
Yes, my own, not shame, my own humility. I am a humble man.
Yes. So, anyways, let's just get into it, honey. What have we learned since last time?
All right, so I don't remember why I started doing this. Oh no, I think it was because I was curious about a couple of the questions you asked me about Custer on a previous episode that
Yes.
that I wasn't overly familiar with. So I did some looking and I found an awful lot of things that I got wrong, or at least the details were not the same details that I gave.
I cannot wait.
All right, so I wrote these down so that just in case I didn't memorize them
You
all.
made a lesson plan?
I wouldn't call this one of my lesson plans. No, it's just a list of things that I wanted to remember that I shared. If I remember correctly, I said that Custer only had like about 200 to 300 men with him.
Yeah.
So that was, I'm going to go with a misinformation or a misunderstanding.
Okay.
The group, the entire army that Custer took into the Battle of Little Bighorn or the Battle of the Greasy Grass was 700 men.
That's still a small number.
Yeah, it's still a small number. The number of men that were with him, because he broke his army up into 3 different bodies before they attacked the village. The number of men that were with him was estimates placed between 200 and actually I think the largest number that I heard was 211, so somewhere between 2 and 211.
Okay, so you were thinking the 200 number was the whole army before it was split.
That, or I was misremembering I was thinking about the casualty numbers. The total casualty numbers for the battle were 268 men. So again, in between that 200 and 300 range.
Okay.
So like it's been so long since I looked at anything that had to do with Custer. It's entirely possible that I was just getting those numbers mixed up in my memory.
That makes sense.
All right, so that was one detail. Another question and this was probably the one that I think launched me on looking at this, was you asked me why was he there, and I had to give an educated guess because I really didn't remember why was he there.
Yeah.
And if I recall correctly, the educated guess I gave you was probably that he was probably trying to get them onto a reservation and not let them escape into Canada or something.
Right.
Okay, so that is not true, or at least not, again, entirely true. Okay. So there were a couple of things, and I found some of these pretty fascinating too. All right, so the first one, and I can't believe that I forgot about this because as soon as I read it, I'm like, oh, no, I remember that.
I can't believe it either.
So I want to point out that the Battle of Little Bighorn, for those that aren't aware, this is in the Dakota areas. This is in, I believe, North Dakota proper, just barely above the South Dakota border.
Were these states at the time, or that's just the land?
This was Indian territory at the time.
Okay.
So gold was discovered in and around the Black Hills about this time. So white settlers are starting to come more to the area, and of course when they do, they are displacing the natives. Secondly, the Native Americans who were in the village that Custer attacks, they were the larger majority of them were Sioux. Their reservation was elsewhere, but a lot of the natives didn't want to stay on that reservation. They either refused to go or they went. They didn't like the conditions, and so they left. The place where they settled, the village that Custer will end up attacking, is actually on Crow reservation land. And the Crow asked the American military, said, hey, we've got these squatters on our land, get them off.
No way.
By treaty, this land was given to the Crow, and so they were using the details of that treaty to say, hey, you need to remove these squatters from our land. And the U.S. military obliges in this case.
Whoa, wait.
So this is why, so these are two of the reasons why Custer sent out there. One, because yes, whites are encroaching on the area again, so the old classic reason. The one that I thought was really cool was that, the Crow chieftain actually asked the U.S. military to get involved and get these other these other tribes off their land.
Yeah, that's blowing my mind.
And then the third reason was the goal was to make sure that all these Native Americans all the ones that are in this village, the Sioux and amongst the others, do go to reservations, because especially with again that first one of white settlers getting into the area, they didn't want to have any I don't remember what the word was. I'm gonna use the word unhoused, unreserved Native Americans wandering around in the area. They wanted to know where they all were, so that the white settlers would be safe.
Quote, safe.
Yes, quote, safe.
Okay.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed that detail, especially the one, again, about the Crow getting involved.
Wait, but
so
hold on.
The scouts that Custer had for this battle, they were Crow scouts.
They were Crow.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. So this land, who did it like belong to before it was made into a Crow reservation?
So that's hard to answer because, as is often the case, the Crow didn't always own this land. They probably took it from somebody, or they got it back from somebody that took it from them at some point in time. The same thing, though, applies to the Sioux and to all the other tribes that were in the area as well. So odds are that they each had turns taking it from one another. Just like if we look back in the history of Europe or anywhere else in the world, lands typically don't tend to belong to any one people. There may have been cultures that have been established in this one particular region for maybe even centuries, maybe even millennia, but they still happen to change hands from time to time.
Right.
An example from our own family history that I know I've talked about, depending on what century we were born in, my family is always identified as German.
Right.
But if you were to go by the nationality of who owned the land, at various points in history, my ancestors could have been German or Polish or something else even.
Right. And also I think it's important to note with this that we tend to think of all Native Americans as one homogenous group, and they absolutely aren't.
That is absolutely the case.
Just because the Crow and Sioux are both Native Americans and both maybe don't get along with the white settlers doesn't mean that they were united. So that's very interesting.
And that I'm like that you pointed that out because, as again, if we look back throughout history, that is actually one of the major reasons for why conquerors tend to be successful. If you have a united army of conquerors coming, and they can play off of the fact that all the people that they're trying to conquer or all the people in the area they want are not united, that's a very effective tool. The Romans were able to do it when they settled in, or when they started invading Britain. The clans there weren't united. The Americans were able to do it when they came into what will eventually be able to be the U.S. because, the Native American tribes weren't aligned. And we talked about this before. One of the reasons why Cortez was successful in conquering the Aztec Empire was because the Aztec Empire was not a united empire. There were lots of bitter rivalries going back in time through all the tribes that were in those areas. And the same thing applies to the Native American tribes as well. This is a common repeating theme throughout history, to take advantage of the lack of unity of the people in an area that you want to conquer or subject or whatever the case might be.
I mean, like, so often the bad guys are just really good manipulators.
Yep. I would dare say that if ever somebody does have enough power to take it to the United States and to try to conquer us, I guarantee you they are going to try to use, and let's get those Californians to turn on those Texans. It's going to happen.
I mean, just pick your state, any of them.
Yep. While we are all united as Americans, we are not united as Americans.
Yeah. Well, no, I was thinking too, like, if someone wanted to, like, conquer just our family, they'd have no problem manipulating and setting our kids against each other. I think most parents know how that goes.
I think we've talked about this before. We're convinced that two of them are already going to go at each other.
Except I'm convinced that they're going to be best friends with each other's spouses. And so it's going to be a real weird dynamic around the holidays.
I look forward to those holidays.
I cannot wait.
So anyway, going back to some more things
Back
about
to your
Custer.
notes.
All right, so I think I mentioned also that I had this preconception that, he was actually kind of popular. There were some Native Americans that liked him.
Yeah.
So that, I couldn't find anything specifically to dispute that, but I couldn't find anything to overly support it either.
Okay.
The closest that I did get was that apparently though he was already married, I believe, he did take a Native American's woman to wife. It was it was a chief's daughter. I don't remember what tribe she was from. She might have been a Crow.
Wait. He was married already.
I believe he was married already.
Was he widowed?
So there's another problem with my work. I didn't look to see, did he actually have a family already? I'm pretty sure he was married already. So he supposedly either he took her to, and so this is where there were conflicting accounts. Some accounts said that he took her to wife. Some accounts said that no, he just straight up took this girl and raped her. And odds are, no matter
somewhere
which one, it's probably in the middle. Even if he did take the girl to wife, arguably he was raping her, because what were the odds that she was actually willing?
Consenting.
So we don't know for sure on that one.
Well, you don't know for sure.
I don't know for sure on that one. Yes, I apologize. All right. And then one of the other stories that I mentioned was that his body was not desecrated, that two women supposedly threw themselves on him and protected him, told the warriors to go away, don't touch him.
And that sounded like a fabrication to uphold our legend.
But actually, that is one of the stories. So I want to be clear. So we have no idea really what happened to Custer and those 200 men that were with him. Well, okay, we know they
Oh,
were killed, but
okay.
like we don't know any details about the battle. The only survivors of his part of the battle were
Uh-huh.
Native Americans that were there or witnesses, and the
Okay.
accounts that we have from them are widely differing. Like just the area in which the battle happened, the dispute has a radius that's over a mile wide, so
No
that's a pretty
way.
big area just in the different accounts that say that, oh, this is where he was first seen, and this is who shot
Okay.
him, where they shot him, how they killed him, whatever the case was. So, but one of the surviving accounts
Mm-hmm.
is indeed that two women who were in the village who were supposedly family of the woman that he took to wife,
Oh,
they recognizing him threw themselves on him and told the other warriors, go away, don't take him.
no way.
In addition to that, and this one that I thought, this one was another one that I thought was really good because like it totally makes sense. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
surprised like that this wasn't like talked up more. Though granted, it might be talked up plenty. And again, I just wasn't paying
Yeah,
attention.
you just don't know it.
Was that all right? During the course of the battle, the
Uh-huh.
Native Americans they had no idea who they were fighting against.
What?
They were just
Wait,
fighting
what?
against some Americans. They didn't know Custer was there.
Oh,
Most of
okay.
them found out that, oh, they killed Custer days or weeks afterward when rumor
Oh.
and or newspapers or whatnot came to them and they found out that, oh, he was there. Okay.
Whoa. So you mean like Custer didn't go into battle with a giant flag and like a banner on the side of his horse, like, I am Custer?
The closest that he would have come to anything like that was, if I remember correctly, I've read accounts of
Mm-hmm.
him being described or recognized by his golden hair, or that he commonly
Uh-huh.
went in wearing a buckskin outfit instead of his traditional army uniform.
Okay.
But if I remember correctly on the accounts that I was reading during all
Mm-hmm.
of this, there were like anywhere between 3 to 5 other people that were
Mm-hmm.
also wearing buckskin outfits when they
Yeah.
went into this particular battle. And and this is again where a lot of the discrepancies get in. Different stories say that, oh no, they killed him at this point in time. Well, they might have killed one of those other guys that had a
Oh
buckskin
my
outfit at the time, so they
gosh.
can't be sure who they got.
Yeah.
Oh, and on that subject, that reminds me, one of the going back to the story about him
Yeah.
taking that chief's daughter to wife. One of the other sources that I remember reading suggested that okay, he might not have ever actually been the one to take this woman to wife. It might have been his brother who took this woman and either married her or raped her or whatever the
How
case is.
are the records so confusing? How?
The
Why?
records get confused because they get lost, they get destroyed, they don't get kept properly, or if they are kept or
Uh-huh.
created, sometimes they're created long after the fact is over. There's
Was
lots
he
of
a
different
twin?
reasons. So, no, he wasn't a twin, but let me give it to you like this. So, we find evidence, we find records of
Mm-hmm.
people going back even thousands and thousands
Of
of
course.
years. But a couple years back, I remember I read yet another account. I want to say this was in Iran, but it might have been somewhere else in the Middle East,
Mm-hmm.
where they were destroying ancient statues or
Oh,
artifacts
yeah.
or relics from the Persian era or even before that. People find reasons to destroy things in history.
No, I know, but it just surprises me in this case because, like, the Civil War wasn't that long ago, and we do have plenty of records that have survived from that time.
And I guarantee you we don't have the whole story, though.
Well, yeah.
So think about all the records that we have, and now I wonder how many. When you think about all the records that we do have, how much then must we have lost
Oh, for
to have
sure.
been able to keep that much of it?
And hence my frustration with studying history at all because we can't know the full picture.
But we can get a good idea about it.
Yeah, but you people, you historians act like you
What do
do
you
know
mean,
everything.
you people?
You heard me.
All right. Well, I'm not quite finished yet.
Okay.
And, one of the other questions or ideas that I think you had me was
Mhm.
why was there this battle? So not why was he there to get rid of them, but some details about the fighting.
Okay.
So the attack, it turns out, was rather hastily conceived by Custer, and this is why. And I thought this
Sounds
was
like
another.
a bad idea.
This was why, and I thought this was another cool story. All right, so while he's sending his army around, and they're trying to find the village, and they do finally get an idea of the general idea of where the
Uh-huh.
village is. So as he's going about, and they're still trying to find the exact location, he gets word from a couple of his scouts that the Indians know we're here because
Uh-huh.
they and his scouts going around looking, they found their own tracks with another set of tracks, Native American tracks, crossing over their
What?
tracks.
Wait, what?
This means that the natives were walking by, saw the U.S. Army's tracks, and that means that, all right, so Custer and his men, they've lost the element of surprise. The natives know they're there now. So this is why he gets kind of pressured into, okay, well, we got to do this now then, because we've lost the element of surprise.
Oh my gosh, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is just like, is it Jonestown? One of those cults where they
got out
they
that
had
they
their
were they had an
compound.
intern, yep.
Yes, and the whole thing was botched, and people died because people.
But it gets better though.
Oh my gosh, did they have tear gas?
No, they didn't have tear gas.
That was part of the problem. Was with
it gets better. So, like I said, so his scouts tell him that, okay, the Native Americans, they know we're here.
Yeah.
They didn't. Yes, there were some Native Americans that did walk by, cross that trail, saw the American military trail. But those Native Americans who did cross the trail, they didn't go back and report it to the village. They were leaving the village, and they didn't turn around and go back and report it to them. They just kept walking.
No.
So the village did not know that Custer was out and about. They did not know that the American military was out and about, or at least not that close.
So his hastiness, wasn't necessary.
His hastiness did not help out.
Dang.
Yeah. And then one of the last things that I remember saying was that he had broken his army up into several pieces, and that at least one of those pieces didn't even get involved in the fight.
Yeah.
So if I understood the accounts correctly, one of the accounts that I was trying to read was very unorganized in its details, so I was reading it 7-8 times, and I still wasn't sure that I was following everything precisely. So one group under the command of a guy named Reno that launched the first part of the attack.
Did he found Reno, Nevada?
I cannot say for certain. I didn't do an extensive
deep
dive into him.
You never look up the important stuff. Okay, keep going.
Excuse you?
What did Reno do?
So he was the one that launched the first part of the attack on the village, and I said at the time that I thought that was meant to distract them, to lure the warriors away. No, that was just the first part of the attack. So, and then, Custer goes off to attack the village from another direction, and then a third army, because he broke his army up into 3 groups, they were supposed to go and attack from another direction. So attack the village from 3 sides so that they can't escape.
Yeah.
The third guy, he didn't get involved. He went in the direction that he was told, didn't find the village. So he turned around and went back, and by the time he got back into range, what he found was Reno's beaten group having already retreated from the battle.
Oh my god!
And of course, there was no sign of Custer.
That's embarrassing. For him.
Say embarrassing, but for his troopers, I'm pretty sure that he was the lucky guy.
Well, considering how it ended up, yeah.
Oh, and then one other thing that I thought this was really fascinating, because I love how history kind of crosses all over the place and connects. All right, so we talked about how Custer was given a brevet promotion of so I thought it was lieutenant or was
general.
A general. I did confirm. No, he was breveted to 2-star general.
What?
So major general.
And then knocked all the way back to lieutenant colonel?
And after the war, he, if I remember correctly, he was forced to get, so he didn't, if I read correctly, it looks like he did not stay in the army. He resigned from the army, and that would mean resigning his commission as well. And he spent some time thinking about, all right, well, what am I going to do next? He thought about going into business. He thought about going into the railroads. And among the things that he considered, and I thought that this was awesome, was that he was actually offered a place by Emperor Maximilian, the the Austrian-born French puppet emperor of Mexico, when France conquered Mexico during the American Civil War. So that takes us into this whole other epic of things that happened in history. But Maximilian offered Custer the job of being general of his army. So Custer could have had a part in drastically altering Mexico's history.
That's insane.
But there was something about the legality of him having to... So maybe he hadn't quit the army yet, because there was something about the legality of him being able to leave. He got Grant's okay to leave, and he got somebody else's permission to leave, but he didn't get the Secretary of War's permission to leave. Or there was some higher up who didn't give him the permission he needed to be able to resign his commission and go work for Maximilian. So that's why that plan ended up not going into effect. But he was definitely considering that, at least.
Dang.
So just briefly add a little bit to that was that, So the United States has what we call the Monroe Doctrine.
Yeah, I've heard of it. No idea what it is. Go
Okay.
on.
The Monroe Doctrine was this piece of paper that back in the day.
Was it paper? I thought they were still writing on tablets at that point.
Yeah.
Stone, chiseled it.
All right. So anyway, the Monroe Doctrine
Yes.
was this document that set a policy in the United States that, unless I'm mistaken, this still is legit today, even though there's never really been a need for it, which says that the United States will not tolerate European interference on anywhere this side of the globe. So in other words, we were basically saying to Britain and France and to everybody else in Europe,
keep your mitts out.
Yeah, you stay out of here. This is our zone of influence. We're going to watch out for all our brothers and sisters here on the New World.
Okay.
So during the American Civil War, however, the U.S. is kind of busy with its own affairs, and the French Emperor Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, decides that, all right, this is an opportune time to take advantage. And yeah, the French Republic under him conquers Mexico, and he installs the brother of the Austrian emperor, because that guy's not going to inherit, he's the second or somewhere lower son, installs him as a puppet emperor in Mexico. So and this is where the Battle of Cinco de Mayo comes in. The Battle of Cinco de Mayo.
Oh, you mean Mexican Independence Day?
It is not Mexican Independence Day. You just offended so many people to say nothing of me, and I'm not even Mexican.
No, I know.
But yeah, so the Battle of Cinco de Mayo, that famous battle de la Plata, I think it's called.
I have no idea.
Or I might be remembering the name wrong. But that comes from this fight between the French and Mexico.
So Custer could have been there.
I don't think he would have been at that battle, because that battle, if I remember correctly, is while the French are still trying to conquer Mexico. Maximilian hiring Custer means that the French have already won the war, and Maximilian's puppet empire is trying to preserve itself. But like I said, that's a whole good story. So much detail into there that would warrant a much different episode. Since all we're really doing is addressing things that I got wrong about Custer, and I have no idea if you're actually going to ask me another question now.
Oh, I'm not. No, this is our entire episode. It's like a Custer correction spectacular.
Right. And then, so since we're doing Custer corrections, I have a confession to make. So the so last night we went to a kind of a quasi-family reunion. My foster brother was in town, so we were at the grandparents' house and had a meal and some games with them. It was fun, and knowing that our Custer episode had aired that day, I was convinced that there was no way, shape, and form that my wife was going to get out of that house without conspiring with my mother to get that book. I planned it all out too. I was going to make her open every bag, anything that we brought back with us. I was going to strip search the kids if I had to. I was going to find that book because I knew it was going to be there. I should confess. So I never ended up doing any of those things. I instead settling for looking my wife dead in the eye and said, "You be honest with me.
You were very
This is a
stern.
serious thing. Did you bring that book here?"
It was almost scary how serious you were. I was like, wait, what is happening?
I will not tolerate finding more princess stickers and that book. You can have one or the other.
So my confession is, chill out. Oh my gosh.
Tell me to chill out right now. This is a tense moment, woman.
Those eyes you're giving me. Okay, so my confession is, I had no clue that the Custer episode went live yesterday. I don't pay attention. I mean, like, I pay attention to it, but like, I edit these things and I have my documents and then they publish automatically. Like, I schedule them to publish and then I move on to the next one. I had no clue. And I can guarantee you, your mother has not listened to that episode yet. Because she would have said something.
That hurts.
She's listened to the first few, but I think she's just not into podcasts.
Ugh, what does that say about us if my own mother won't even listen to me? Woe is me.
I mean, at least your mom tried listening in the beginning. I don't think my parents even have any clue.
That's rather awkward. But to be expected from in-laws.
No, my parents are amazing. My dad is so cool. He just doesn't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I love your dad.
Publish this in book form and your mom would read it. Put this on like the actual AM radio and my dad would listen to it. I think. Maybe.
All right, that one sounds doable to me. Maybe
Okay,
I'll get lucky. Maybe AM radio is listening to us, and somebody will offer me a program or at least like a 5 minute slot on one of their shows.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
if I could
sure.
get if I could get on Tom Sullivan, that would be awesome. I love Tom Sullivan.
Convince him to do like a history corner, like your fact of the day.
Well, well, as cool as that would be for the things that he tends to talk about, he seems to already be very familiar with
Oh
the history
yeah,
that he needs.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Do you have
I,
anything else
I
about?
don't see Tom Sullivan talking about ancient Rome or or the
Although
conquest of the Aztec Empire
you never
in
know.
the near
He,
future.
that man might think about Rome every day. We've discovered that on TikTok this week. Apparently, most men think of the Roman Empire on a regular, surprisingly regular basis.
All right, there we go. So I know he has a comment line where that you can call into. So I'm going to call
Someone
in
needs
there
to
and I'm going to just
ask.
ask him, how many times do you think about Rome?
Seriously. No, but total tangent, but I thought that thing was hilarious. And if people are curious, I made 2 TikTok videos about it. So, of course, you think of the Roman Empire literally every day.
So again,
It's your thing.
I don't know for sure that I do, but
It's conceivable that you do.
yeah, it's conceivable that I do.
And so if you watch all these videos, it gives you the impression that every man thinks about it at least once a week. But that's all like observation bias, because the women who post those videos, their men have a surprising often answer. But like I polled my family, and out of 7 men, you were the only one. So according to my observation bias, only 1 in 7 men think about the Roman Empire on a regular basis. So I think it's just funny.
Okay.
Apparently no one in my
Well,
family cares about history.
I've always known that I was better than all of your brothers, so I'm cool with that.
Right. Right. Your definition of better is different than some other people's.
You mean accurate? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Do you have anything more about Custer, or was that the end of your notes?
I think that was the end of my notes. I'm sure there's probably more, but those were the ones. Those were the things that I found awesome enough that I wanted to share.
Those were indeed
I
awesome.
still don't want that book in this house.
But now that you've made such a big deal out of it, it will appear now. Because eventually, your mother will hear this episode. Your children will hear this episode. And they will conspire with her. And now it will happen. But if you hadn't said anything, it would have just, one little footnote in the last Custer episode. Everyone would have forgotten about it. So
what
this
I'm
is
hearing
your
from
fault.
you is that I need to stop talking.
Yes.
Okay, well, I
Just
guess
in
this is going to be our
general.
final episode. Thank you all for listening, but I guess our time is indefinitely up.
No, what I'm saying is that you need to stop being so bullyable. It's your fault that when you get bullied.
Did you just victim shame me?
I believe I did. Victim blame is the term.
Whatever. I can't believe you sunk so low.
You can believe it though.
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I'm totally convinced. I totally believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is going to come back to bite you one day. I'm going to remember this.
No, it won't. I'm so lovable. No one will ever call me out for anything. All right, thank you for listening.
I'm so tempted right now to list the many times that people have called you out, and I've heard you sobbing in the corners like, why did people say such mean, awful things about me? All I did was say that they were awful people.
Oh my gosh, now you're making stuff up. I'm a judgy person, but I judge in private. I'm allergic to conflict and confrontation. I would die before I say anything mean to somebody's face. And you know this.
Mm-hmm.
People have said mean things about me, but it's usually hilarious. Like, you're a terrible mother. And it's like, that's not calling me out. That's just projecting, perhaps.
Yeah,
and just
true.
being mean for meanness sake, because I know it's not true, because our kids are awesome.
Yep.
Anyways, if you liked what you heard,
what were we talking about before?
We're trying to
Oh,
close.
this was supposed to be a history episode. It sounds like we're talking more about family problems.
I mean,
Is this show going to become a marriage counseling show now? We're going to use history to help people through their marriages.
my aunt's a therapist. We could get her on as a special guest speaker.
All right, just don't give your wives poisonous snakes. Yeah, you can get a lot of good marital advice out of history. Yeah,
Poisonous snakes? What's that from?
Don't give your wife poisonous snakes.
Is that a Nero reference?
Don't cheat on your uncle or your nephew. Let's see. I'm trying to think of all the good ones. Like, okay. Let's see.
Make a list and share it
Don't
next
do
time.
polygamy. Okay. Oh, some good ones. Yeah, okay, yeah. We could have some fun with that.
Okay, you put some thought into that. If you liked what you heard, then please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave us a 5-star review.
If you'd like to hear a future episode with more information about today's topic, contact us on Gmail, Facebook, Instagram. Don't adopt your nephew! No, that's bad. Never mind.
I don't know who you're
good.
referencing.
Nero. Okay, so no,
Oh.
not that's not marriage advice. That's more family advice anyway. What was I saying? Or TikTok at Married to History Pod.
Also, please contact us if you have a silly question idea or if there's something from history that you would love to learn about.
Just be sure to specify in your message if it's silly or serious, because we don't want to treat a genuine quest for knowledge like a joke.
Talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You ready for it?
I am always ready for it, because you literally. Well, okay, I guess technically I'm never ready for it.
ready for it.
Well, I am always ready for it, because even if I don't know anything about what you're going to ask me for, I think I conduct myself well, and I'm humble enough to admit that there might be one thing, maybe two things in all of history that I don't know. But definitely no more than that. You know that old joke about between me and my brother, we know the whole encyclopedia thing? Yeah, if I were to do that...
That's a thing?
If I
don't know. Okay.
I think it's a common joke. I've heard it a couple of occasions.
Okay.
If that were the case for me, it would be that, between me and my brother, we know the whole of history. Yeah, my brother knows the cover page. I know the rest.
Sure.
There's literally nothing I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like Henry Ford once said, he was the smartest. So Socrates once said he was the smartest person in the world because he knew he didn't know anything. Henry Ford said that no, he was the smartest person in the world because if he didn't know the answer, he knew where to look it up. Now we all have our gadgets with almost unlimited information available to us right now. You'd think we'd all be smarter then.
All right, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
I thought you already asked me that, and I thought I already answered. Asked and answered, honey. Apparently, I need to turn on one of my games and do something.
Or silence your phone.
Or silence my phone. Yeah, big deal.